One perennial truth, rich or not, successful or not, religious, philosophical, it doesn't matter. You will die. From the beginning of time till the end, death is one universal, inescapable commonality. Kings or peasants, brilliant or stupid, everyone dies or is dead. Some try not to think about it, but for others, the certainty of death is kept at the forefront of thought. Why? So that they might really live. Memento mori, or translated in English, remember you must die. The point of this is a reminder, isn't to be morbid or promote fear, but to inspire, motivate, and clarify. The idea has been central to art, philosophy, literature, architecture, and more importantly, throughout history. As Socrates says in Plato's Phaedo, the one aim of those who practice philosophy in the proper manner is to practice for dying and death. So it says here, a few quotes. Seneca urged in his moral letters to Licinius, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books every day. The one who puts the finishing touches on their life each day is never short of time." In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." The emperor considered it imperative to keep death at the forefront of his thoughts. In doing so, the world's most powerful man managed the obligations of positions guided by living virtuously now. Epictetus would ask his students, "Do you then ponder how the supreme of human evils, the surest mark of the base and cowardly, is not death, but the fear of death, and beg them to discipline yourself against such fear. Direct all your thinking, exercises, and reading this way. You will know the only path to human freedom." Welcome, folks. This is All Minus One. My name is Bill. Please like, share, and subscribe. So why do I bring up the Memento Mori quotes? Well, because we in the world today do not practice this right here. We do not practice the idea of living for today. In fact, aside from the philosophical principles of this, it is a Christian principle. Christ said, "Do not worry for tomorrow," that there are enough worries in the day. And we are destroying our societies and our economies because of this fear that we are living in, because of this fear of this Coof epidemic. Now, I don't want to keep talking about this, but there are still millions of people out there who are completely brainwashed. Fortunately, I believe that some in Europe are waking up. They've had mass protest against lockdowns. But here, where I live in West Virginia, I see often more and more people wearing masks. I see how people are afraid to go to certain events. People don't want to have Thanksgiving and Christmas. Of course, Thanksgiving is past, but they are scared. And they think they are being virtuous and responsible, when in fact, they are being the exact opposite. They are being irresponsible and allowing themselves to be led into tyranny. They are being slaves of the state, of the overlords, if you would, of the people who would essentially just like to have complete control over you and have you do everything that they want. The video I did yesterday was about the dark ideas that come from the left, that people must be controlled by elitists, that folks are overpopulating the world and they're too stupid to breed. They're too stupid to decide for themselves. Just all kinds of dark, evil things that have a long history going far back to the ancient times. And it is no different today. And all that are on the left generally believe the same. And I'm not talking about like what we would call a liberal in today's sense, someone who wants to help other people. They don't understand that their means of helping other people should be direct by them, and instead they obfuscate their responsibility and put it upon the government. But I think those people actually have their hearts in the right place most of the time. But make no mistake that a lot of them, and the ones that are further and further left, absolutely believe that you cannot decide for yourself how to live. And this is how we get tyranny. Folks, perhaps you have not have heard of the lockdowns that have happened in Argentina. I'm going to talk about them briefly today. Hopefully I will fly through this a little bit quicker than I normally do because I'm not going to read a ton of these articles, just some highlights from them. But I do want you to know this. Argentina's violent enforcement of COVID-19 rules. This is on Human Rights Watch. This picture here is a police officer aims his weapon as security forces fire tear gas and rubber bullets during clashes with police after police broke up a squatters camp and evicted people there living in Guernica, Buenos Aires province. I'm not a Spanish speaker, so forgive me if I mispronunciate words. On Thursday, October 29, 2020. Argentina's response to the COVID-19 has been marred by a violent police response towards people accused of breaking the rules. We've had the same thing actually here in the United States, if you remember, before the mass riots stirred up by the media by a few deaths of people who were committing crimes. You have to understand that there were people being assaulted in the streets in New York City. I recall posting about it on my personal Facebook page as being a travesty to our liberty. So we haven't been much different. But the difference here is that Argentina has been locked down since March. In late March, the government imposed a nationwide lockdown requiring people to quarantine at home, closing down businesses and schools, and restricting travel and movement. Security officers were given enforcement authority, meaning that the police could stop and question virtually anyone on the streets. November 6th, the government announced the end of lockdowns in Buenos Aires metropolitan region, one of the world's longest, although movement restrictions continue in some provinces. Now, why do I bring this up? Why do I bring up particularly the draconian lockdowns in Argentina? Because Argentina's rate of COVID is out of sight. It's insane, folks. It is ridiculous. Argentina locked down as early and hard. Now cases are exploding. So this is in October 27th. And we can go through this whole article, but not a big deal because I'm going to show you the numbers. I just want you to be able to know that I'm not talking out of my rear, and this is from the Washington Post. Of course, my favorite lines, democracy dies in darkness. You guys don't believe in democracy. You believe in oligarchy. You can give up the stupid line. Anyways, from Reuters, no isolation, few tests. Argentina has world's highest COVID-19 positive rate. Well, I don't know about all of that, but it talks here about Argentina has the world's highest rate of positive tests. I thought that was the United States, by the way. For some reason, I kept hearing that in the media, that the United States has the highest amount of tests and the highest rate. Yeah. You guys are, maybe not you listening, but the people out there who have been saying this, who have heard this, you're brainwashed. Read. Do more. Do better. Argentina hit with 800,000 confirmed cases on Monday, with a 7-day rolling average of around 12,500 new daily infections. The country, which started strongly against the virus, passed 20,000 fatalities last week. Medical professionals said low levels of testing and lax restrictions had propelled the high positive rate that climbed from around 40% in August to just shy of 60%. Keep that number in mind. I'm going to come back to this. Now, this is interesting. They say lax restrictions, because here it says that they were locked down pretty hard until November 6th, and the police were totalitarian. Here it says they had an early lockdown. So what is it? This is essentially the same type of article. This is from NBC News. Argentina has world's highest Coof positive rate. And it says Argentina has now the world's highest rate of Coof tests. And this is October 6th, folks. And essentially the same article. Now, this is the Buenos Aires Times. It says, devastated by the Coof, Latin America is now unprepared for vaccine. With 8% of the globe's population and 30% of its Coof deaths, Latin America is facing the pandemic's next phase, mass vaccination, with alarm. Yeah, there's reason for that. Have you seen the pictures of people with Bell's palsy as a side effect? That's what happens, folks. Let me go to the big screen here. Do you want to look like that? I don't know. I'm not into the idea of rush vaccines. I'm not an anti-vaxxer in any way, shape, or form, but let us do these things intelligently. It says one afternoon a couple months ago, hijackers commandeered a truck just east of Mexico City and hauled off its cargo. It wasn't cash or jewelries, but doses of ordinary flu vaccine so scarce in Mexico this year that there's a black market. Well, this is just typical Mexican black market stuff. In Brazil, Latin Americans and another behemoth, President, what's his name, Jair Bolsonaro, who belittles masks, is vowing not to get a Coof vaccine, causing health officials to worry. I'll show you some numbers on that. In Bolivia, the government has approved ingesting chlorine dioxide, chlorine dioxide, bleach, against the virus, widely considered useless and dangerous. I haven't fact-checked that, folks, so we'll have to find out, I guess, some other time. I doubt they endorse that. Arguably, no region in the world has been hit as hard by the virus as Latin America. There seems to be a thing, folks, this is all around the United States as well, that it is hitting Latin communities harder. I showed this the last time I did a Coof video. I showed that this seems to be a thing. In my opinion, speculation, purely speculation, I'm not saying this is true, there might be something with this virus specifically that attaches to certain phenotypes that perhaps people with Spanish or native blood might be affected more. But interestingly, if I'm not mistaken, Spain has been hit pretty hard, and so is Portugal. So it could be something with that. Now, who knows? Anyways, vaccine distributions will be complicated in developing countries, but in Latin America, you have to add a lack of transparency, lack of governance, and corruption. Yeah, because you've had socialism for the last 100 years. That's why you're utterly corrupt. And so forth. So in any case, the point of this article is, yes, there's a lot of people have had this, the Coof is bad, and vaccines are going to be hard to get in Latin America. Now, here are the numbers. So let me take this off dark mode. So back here in March, when they first locked down, not bad, but then in April, all of a sudden, Brazil shoots up. There's Peru, Mexico, Colombia, and down here is Argentina. So we can see these different countries, and here's some other Latin countries. We can go here to this map. This is AS-COA. I'm not sure what this site is, but it gave me information, so I'm using it. And it's not going to be the only source of information I have here, but here's Brazil with 166,000 deaths and almost 167,000. And here in Argentina with 36,000. Now, this might not have been updated because I have information that says there's more. Here is the World Health Organization, the only reliable source ever about any of this, folks. Just remember, the World Health Organization, yes, they might have lied. They might have changed their mind and went back and forth and said conflicting things over the last months. But, for the sake of YouTube, they are the Greatest source ever. They have no ties to China. They didn't try and protect them. None of that stuff happened. So the population of Argentina as of 2016 was 43 million, almost 44 million. Life expectancy is 73 to 80. So that's average of most Western nations. And then total expenditure of health as a percentage of GDP, only 4.79%. Let me go back to dark mode, guys. So, data reported to the WHO in the last 24 hours, December 11th, 2020. New cases, 5,000. Confirmed cases, over 1 million, nearly 1.5. Confirmed deaths, 40,000. That's in Argentina. Here is the information. I'm going to have to turn this back. So that's confirmed cases above. And we can see way back here in March, low, 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 low. Even though they were locked down, all this spike happened during their lockdown. All of it happened. Peaked in October, started to decline. And then here in November is when they started loosening restrictions. And then here, again, we can see the confirmed cases. So what happened? Well, it looks like the lockdown slowed it down. It did what they were trying to do here in the United States. It flattened the curve. But did it really? Because that looked like it curved up pretty hard. And that's all that we are doing, folks. We are not remembering that we are immortal. We are not living for today. We are living in fear, as the quote here again once said. And this is true. Anyone who understands psychology, understands human psychology, understands that people are more afraid of pain than they are generally of death, because death is too abstract for them. This is people being afraid of having a painful death, largely from this virus. Do I want people to get it? Absolutely not. But let's make no qualms about it that it's going to happen, folks. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to burn out. It is around the world. And if China had locked things down appropriately and done what it should have done, and the World Health Organization had given us the proper information that we needed, that the nations needed, perhaps we could have stopped this and it would have burned out in China like SARS and MERS did. MERS being in the Middle East, SARS being over in Asia. However, that's not what happened. And it got around the world, and it's going to continue. It's not going to burn out. You cannot lock everyone down. It's impossible. It is impossible to stop this thing. You have to understand this. We must live our lives. But I have good news for you. It has a very high rate of survival. So this is from the CDC, and this is just travel information, basically saying don't go to Argentina. They are at a very high level right now. Here is our world in data, which I often use. I like this site a lot. So again, we can look at the numbers and the cases and how they went up. And boom. And there's the spike in October, and after lockdowns, it went down, because this is what happened in all nations. See, all they did was destroy their economy, lock everything down, essentially keep people out of work, right? Let them become more poor, because people aren't necessarily wealthy in Argentina. And then they finally hit their spike, because it was going to happen like every other nation, and I've shown you this time and time again on every Coof video I've made, and then it drops. Amazing. Why? Because it burns through the country. They've hit 60% infection rate. So this is our world-o-meter. Argentina, coronavirus cases. Again, almost 1.5 million. Deaths, 40,000. Recovered. Nearly all. And then it shows you right here. This is the most important portion here. Cases closed. Cases had an outcome. Recovered, discharged, 97%. Deaths, 3%. Here, from Statistica. There's Brazil, really far up there. Now, Brazil is one of the larger populated countries in the world. I think it has like the 5th or 6th largest population. It's like China, India, us, Russia, Brazil. There are a few other countries in there, but it's something like that. And we can see, again, the numbers, just compared to other nations, of infections. This is infections only, not deaths. So, what's the solution to all this? Well, after they locked down for months and months and months and didn't stop anything and destroyed their economies, now what are they doing? A transfer of wealth backward. Since the wealth went forward, now it goes backward. Now we have to steal from the rich, from Bloomberg Wealth, Argentina, to hit the rich with wealth taxes as COVID-19 cost rises. This was December 5th, 2020. Now, folks, this will start happening in the United States if we go back into lockdown, as Joe Biden is stating, if Joe Biden wins this presidency. And yes, I'm saying it's still disputed. Because it is. It's not final until January 6th. So, from CNBC, millionaires tax. Argentina passes levy on the super rich to help pay for COVID response. This was December 7th, updated on the 8th. Key points. Lawmakers in the Senate pass a bill dubbed the millionaires tax by 42 votes to 26 late on Friday. It means those with a personal fortune of over 200 million pesos, $2 million US, approximately 12,000 people, will have to pay a one-off tax of at least 2%. So that's a lot of dough, folks, 2%. Argentina's population of 45 million has been hit hard by the coronavirus pandemic. So what they're trying to do is take a little money, one-time tax, and this isn't probably going to work because taxes or wealth is a precarious thing. It's not like everyone who's wealthy has that money sitting in the bank. Often they're tied up in assets and whatever else. So it says the center-left government has said that the legislation could see, can I read? Nope. See Latin America's third largest economic collect up to 3.7 billion, with the funds used by medical equipment and supplies provide support to the small and medium-sized firms and to assist poorer neighborhoods. I mean, yeah, that would be great. It would be better if these people just went off and did it themselves because the government's not going to spend the money, right? And I doubt they're center left. We're talking about South America, folks. South America is poor largely because they aren't capitalistic. They've always been ensconced in socialism. Also, there's some stuff there with the Catholic Church that we can get into. Here from France 24, Argentina introduces millionaire tax to help pay for the Coof. And then here finally from CGTN America. The Coof cases in Argentina show sign of decline. Well, yeah, it's been on the decline. It only took you guys, 9 months of lockdown? Draconian lockdown with human rights violations? It says, back to the first article I had on those human rights violations, the Human Rights Watch. It says, media outlets and the local human rights groups have reported dozens of alleged human rights violations by the nation and provincial security forces tasked with enforcing these measures. The National Human Rights Security Reporter received 531 complaints of police abuse late March and early August, including 25 involved deaths, compared with 71 from early December to late March. The Coof pandemic generates enormous uncertainty. Proportionate lockdowns can be a necessary and effective measure. No, they can't. There is no data on that whatsoever. The studies have been done by economists over and over again, comparing country to country with relatively similar sizes. We don't know why some groups versus others are being affected other than certain health things like obesity, heart disease. If you have liver or renal disease, this might, affect you more. Pneumonia, the flu on top of it. A big one's vitamin D. If you don't get enough vitamin D. So there are risks. We don't know necessarily why it hits some people harder than others. But what we do know, essentially, we knew back, and we've known back since April. May, April, May. We've known just about everything we need to know, in my opinion. And someone who reads a lot of data and a lot of stuff and knows how to sort out what's bad data and what's good data. Now, is there a case for locking down, or quarantining, as I would like to put it, because that's what it is, someone who is sick? Sure. But this is not that deadly of a thing comparatively to many other things that the human race has faced in history. And it's not worth the cost, folks. It's not worth the cost of destroying our economies and redistributing wealth. So I want to get into masks real quick. And I couldn't find this video anywhere, so I just had to get it from where I saw it, and that was from Luke Rakowski. By the way, folks, Luke's really good. We Are Change on YouTube. So I'm not going to play the volume on this, but you can just watch this picture of a politician, a bureaucrat, for yourself. This is him backstage putting on a mask. Oh, see, let me just put on my mask here. Let me, gotta get my stuff. Oh, let me walk out. Oh, now that I've virtue signaled, mask off. And this was at the Department of Justice. Again, I looked for this. I couldn't find it. Whatever. Wanted to get this out. But yes, masks, folks, they know. He knows. It's nonsense. He did that as a show. I'm being a good leader. Follow me. No, you're not. You're a hypocrite. And that word means actor, folks. It does not mean one who does something or says something and does another, per se. When Christ used it, the word was meant as a person who was in the theater. He was calling the Pharisees and the Sadducees, the leaders, the religious leaders of the day. He was calling them actors, pretenders, fakes, phonies. So from Town Hall, if mask works, why don't they work? This was September 14th. It says, I'm not anti-masker per se. There, I said it. If you've been reading my rants or columns on the topic these past few months, you might get another idea, though, and I understand that. It certainly seems like I'm anti-mask. Don't forget, whatever. Remember back in May and June when they said, hey, if everyone would just wear a mask for a few weeks, it'll be over, and we can all go back to normal. That is what they said. Remember those 3 hairdressers using masks and the Coof couldn't spread or something? And the blue state policymakers and the national retail and restaurants, that evidence among the few model-based studies to demand that every human for ages 2 and above wearing a moist cloth diaper on his face, both indoors and outdoors, to stop the spread of the virus. That poses very little harm to the vast majority of those who contracted it. Remember them telling us it was only temporary? Yeah. Except neither the masks nor the lockdown measures ever really stopped the Coof. Exactly. Nope, the virus just kept going. But now the CDC admits that with or without masks, 15 minutes of close contact with an affected person will spread the Coof. And it goes on. You can read this. I have other articles, of course. But again, just so you know, it's out there. The information's out there. Now, this was put all over the place. This is the dozer, whatever that means. But this is from Substack, actually. Everyone is already wearing a mask. They just don't work. This was just released the other day. Americans have exceeded universal masking benchmarks, but it has not slowed or stopped the spread of the Coof. I've been saying the same thing from the beginning. You all listen to your priesthood. You listen to the priest class. You listen to the experts. This isn't about anything but control, folks. One of the most common pro-mask arguments I've heard over the courses of the past few years, both from public health experts and your average citizen, sounds similar to the following statement. If only everyone would just wear a mask, we'd be able to crush the virus and end the pandemic. These lines of reasoning is frequently espoused by lockdown governors and public health experts. You see, the problem isn't them. It's you. It's you, the citizen, we're told. Wear a mask, peasant. Just like this guy. Wear a mask like this guy. Yeah. Wear a mask, peasant. You're the problem. You're the reason why the pandemic is still a problem in this country. And idiots and fools who worship the government and the experts instead of thinking for themselves will yell at you, will assault you, will scream at you, will do everything. I saw this crazy Karen in a car the other day that a bit of Brit. She's a YouTuber. I don't think she does much anymore, but I follow her on Instagram, and she put up a thing with this woman like yelling at someone out of her car, just freaking, I'm a teacher! We have to stay locked down! We have to stay locked down! You need to get over yourself. No, we do not. But you probably shouldn't be teaching because you're an idiot. Of course, I could go with the Norm Macdonald tagline that teachers don't have to be that intelligent. Norm Macdonald has a great series of jokes about that. He actually like totally roasts the teacher in the audience, talking about how you only have to be smarter than the first graders you teach. He's like, are teachers really heroes? And some lady got really mad about that. He goes, what do you teach? She's like, I teach first grade. And he's like, okay, so that makes you a hero? Anyway, so we got some tweets here. We got some nonsense, whatever. Yeah, Phil Murphy, all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. Let's get down here. The idea that not enough Americans are wearing masks is detached from reality, and we have the data to prove it. The Delphi Group at Carnegie Mellon University has developed a very informative... Let's get that up in a new tab, actually. Has developed very informative, consistently updated mask compliance tracker and shows that the overwhelming majority of Americans across the nation are wearing masks. And in virtually every major population center in the United States, especially in areas where the Coof cases are rising, mask compliance levels are off the charts high, with the most major metro areas registering well over 90% compliance. Early on in the pandemic, when the new science told us that masks could stop the virus, it is in its tracks after the science of the early 2020s espoused by the likes of Fauci and many others rightly pointed out to the reality that masks are useless outside of the controlled settings. This is all true. I'm going to show you some stuff on that here in a minute. The CDC and other public health agencies claim that we could essentially eliminate the transmission of a large percentage. Then lockdowns failed to stop the spread. Masking over 80% was hyped. Do more to reduce the Coof spread than stricter lockdowns. Universal masking at 80% adoption flattens the curve significantly more than maintaining a strict lockdown. We will not be able to flatten the curve. We will be able to significantly reduce the spread of the virus and return to a life of normal sooner than later. Yeah, and none of that has happened, has it? So, this is San Francisco, 97% mask compliance. So the numbers here are showing the percentage of people who are complying out of the population, yet they are still one of the hotter spots. New York City, 97%, 96.5%. DC metro area, my neck of the woods. Dallas-Fort Worth, Philadelphia, over and over and over again. It has done nothing. The data demonstrates very clearly that Americans have overwhelmingly exceeded the masking compliance percentages needed to supposedly flatten the curve and reduce transmission of the virus. The problem, of course, is that the models have not matched reality. Americans are wearing masks, but the hypothesis behind universal masking has not worked to stop the spread. Americans have adopted the recommendations of the public health experts and whatever else. Now, folks, go look at this up for yourself. If you Google this, you'll find this is in many publications, was allowed to be reprinted on many online publications. The title is Everyone is Already Wearing a Mask, They Just Don't Work. And that is by Jordan Shanshittel, I guess. I don't know. So this is the study that it links to. It's not coming up for me, so no big deal. Let's go here, though. From the Federalist, This was October 12th. CDC study finds overwhelming majority of people getting the Coof were masks. Here is part of the study. You can go through it yourself. Again, I just want to read you the headlines, show you that you can find this stuff quite easily. Not in the nightly news, not in the mainstream media. It's not there, folks. It won't be there because they want you locked down. They are elitists. They wish to lie to you. They wish for you to be under their thumb. And a boot on your neck on top of that. CDC study, 85% of the Coof patients reported wearing masks always or often, from Breitbart. You might say, Bill, you're using all right-wing sources. Yeah, I don't care. Because the left-wing sources, they don't care about being honest with you. The ends justify the means. They want you under their thumb. They want you under their control because you're not smart enough. You're just a dumb little plebe. You're just a silly, silly fool, and you have to be told what to do and how to live. So this is climatedepot.com. It says, physicists' new study, why masks don't work and how governments are operating in a science vacuum. A case against mandatory mask regulations. So here was an updated study in August 2020. Again, go look these things up for yourself, but I'm going to read the headlines here, or the highlights, I should say. The World Health Organization now admits the Coof is basically not spreaded unless you have active symptoms. Asymptomatic spread of the Coof is very, very rare. Well, duh. Asymptomatic spread of anything, of any virus, is rare. Unless it's like sexually transmitted disease or there's some sort of, if it's a bloodborne pathogen or any of that kind of stuff. Like, this is basic stuff, folks. I've been doing this, been studying this stuff, professionally for 20 years. I've had to be a first responder. I worked in a jail. You have to know about these things. And I'm not saying everyone who works in a jail is, the sharpest, sharpest tool in the shed, right? But because it's not a high-skill job. It's a job where you just have to have a high tolerance for nonsense. And are willing to put forth some authority. But nonetheless, there were plenty of smart people that worked there, and we had medical training, and we had to use medical training on inmates if they were injured or hurt. We had to be first responders. I myself personally have found someone hanging, and we've had to try to resuscitate him until EMS could get there. It was part of my job. I also worked in a hospital, and although I did security work there, I worked side by side with medical staff all the time. There are certain things that people know, and it's like we're being gaslit into how viruses spread and all. Magically, this thing it doesn't apply to any rules that have ever existed for universal precautions. And that's what this is all we need, and it's all I've ever said we needed from the beginning. Just basic universal precautions. Wash your hands, do this or that, right? Honestly, I think people overdo that stuff as well. You're lowering your immune system, folks. But anyways, it says from the data we have, it seems to be rare that an asymptomatic person actually transmits onward to a second individual. And that's Dr. Maria van Kerkhove, head of the WHO Emerging Disease and Zoonose Unit, whatever. I believe that's the woman who they basically retracted like the next day. In any case, we have some tweets about whatever. You can go look this article up. Danish health authorities thing. There's just information here, folks, and it talks about why masks don't work. But let us keep moving. This is from the CDC directly. And what it says right here, directly, your mask offers some protection to you. How well it protects you from breathing in the virus likely depends on the fabrics used and how your mask is made. CDC is currently studying these factors. The studies have been done. They've been done over and over and over again. It says, who should wear the mask? Everyone 2 years of age and older. That's silly. No one of that age is at risk. And if they're not symptomatic, they're not going to be spreading it. If you're not coughing and sneezing and expelling particulates, unless you're a spitter when you talk, you're in someone's face, you're not expelling particulates, folks. Who should not wear the mask? Children younger than 2. Anyone who has trouble breathing. I do every time I wear a mask, so that exempts me, right? Anyone who is unconscious, incapacitated, or otherwise unable to move, remove the mask. Wearing masks may be difficult for some people with sensory, cognitive, or behavioral issues. They're talking about folks with, maybe autism or something like that, like extreme cases. This is the Living Freedom blog. This was back in May. Why I don't wear masks. And it says, I don't wear masks when I'm out and about unless I absolutely have to. More on why below. And it says, I'm a scientist. I earned 3 degrees from physical sciences from a prestigious university. I published more than 30 papers in the scientific and technical journals. I began reading medical journals 13 years ago. I am invited to sit on boards reviewing medical research grant proposals. I've read several medical journal articles on the use of fabric masks. The best study, and again, it's linked there. Let me see if I pull that up. Was published in 2011. It involved 16 hospitals that had specialized facilities for treating patients with highly infectious disease. Over 16,000 healthcare workers who were treating patients in a special wards were followed for 30 days. They were divided into 3 groups: fabric masks, surgical masks, and no masks. Now, I need to remind you that surgical masks are there so surgeons don't spit on people, so they don't get bacteria in their body when they stitch them back up, that kind of stuff. It's something they found out very early on, back in the day when they just washed their hands, because they used to do surgery on one patient and then go to another, and they would spread bacteria that way. So they learned to wash their hands. Eventually, they learned they had to wear masks, a lot of things in the primitive days of modern surgery. That were hard knock lessons. The no mask group was free to wear a disposable surgical mask whenever necessary, but they did not wear them continuously as the surgical mask group did. The cloth mask users were instructed to wash their mask with soap and water daily. They monitored these workers for respiratory illness like influenza and laboratory confirmed respiratory illness infections. The workers who wore cloth masks were 13 times as likely to become infected than the ones who wore surgical masks. Cloth masks were used roughly 7 times. Users were 7 times as likely to get infections than those who didn't wear masks. That's why I don't wear masks. It says, in a speech, the author concludes the results: caution against the use of cloth masks, moisture retention, reuse of cloth masks, and poor filtration may result in increased risk of infection. Now, again, I covered this with some epidemiologists. I just allowed them to speak, played it on my channel. You can go back, find my Coof videos. It's in there. Said the same thing. And these guys are researchers that go through the studies. And this was, I don't know, some months ago. They're like, no, masks don't work. So here is the study. Let's see. BMJ Journal. And you all, we're not going to go through this, but you all can look at this yourself. Oh, that came up. Yeah, went the wrong way. If you want to go find this webpage, folks, this is ClaireWolf.com blog, and it says Living Freedom, Why I Don't Wear Masks. So after all that, then we have this. Factcheck.org. Danish study doesn't prove masks don't work against the Coof. I covered this study the other week because it was in the LA Times, and folks, it does say they don't work. So, this is the fact check. This is insanity. Did a recent study in Denmark show that face masks are useless for the Coof? No. The study found that face masks did not have a large protective effect for wearers. Not that masks don't provide no protection at all or don't offer any benefits. This isn't a fact check, folks. This is called semantics. It's word games. Meanwhile, while we remain locked down, 500,000 children living and destitute across the UK. Man, that's great news. Newsweek, thanks. Thanks for informing me that 500,000 children. Oh, it is just absolute insanity, folks. Absolutely. 500,000 children across the UK are living in destitution, while the number of children living in extreme poverty increasing by 52% in 2 years, a new study claims. Now, This study was over some time, again, right here in 2019. But of course, this has gone up. It's going to continue to go up. Who are these children living in destitution, by the way? 1,000%. It has to do with refugees, because that's what happens. They come and there aren't jobs for them. There aren't things for them to do. They have to cluster in small homes. They have to live the way that they did before. And many of them, I've seen interviews, said it was better for us to just stay where we were at. But, let the lockdowns continue. Let the Great Reset go forward, folks. Cuomo warns of a challenging period of sustained Coof spread as New York's positivity rate nears 4%. This is WREN radio. 4%. That's insanity. Argentina's rate, as I read to you earlier, was upward of 60%. Where's it at here? 60%, folks, was 40 and went up to 60%. Yes, they had people die. People will die. Remember, you will die. Memento mori. It is how things go in life. I'm sorry that those folks die. Most of them are at the age of life expectancy anyways, that most people will die anyways. Some are younger. I saw an Instagram story pop up the other day where someone was saying, this person had no underlying conditions, blah, 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 blah. None that you know of. But even so, sorry, the guy was like 65 as well. He looked healthy, but it happens. We cannot destroy our entire society, and we cannot make everyone virtue signal and turn against each other over masks. Under 10% of Americans have had the Coof antibodies, study finds. Now, this is a slightly older study. I believe it's the New York Times. Yes, the New York Times. So this was back in September. Less than 10% have the antibodies. The virus is spreading faster in the heartland. Okay, who cares? Florida lifts restrictions for restaurants. I feel sorry for Americans. The world watches the U.S. response to the virus. You're totalitarian jerks if you want us to lock down. I'm sorry. You're authoritarian. I don't like you. I don't like people that feel like they can tell me what to do. I'm sorry. Maybe it's not very Christian of me, but not a fan. The pandemic prompts Japan to bring manufacturing home from China. But it's easier said than done. The French Open is scaled back. Who cares? The virus hits home for Bali's governor. All right, whatever. And we've had studies before saying that people have had a higher amount. If it's under 10%, it's because we delayed it with all these restrictions, travel restrictions, lockdowns, business closures. We could have been over this months ago, like Sweden. Finally, and I archived this over at archive.today, from the Wall Street Journal, Chinese Coof vaccine is 86% effective. UAE trial shows. Now, that was December 9th. Today is the 11th, so just 2 days ago. I don't know about you folks, but I have no plans whatsoever to take any vaccine coming out of China, especially after all of this nonsense over the last year. It's time to wake up. It's time to say no. It starts with you saying no, your friends say no, and speaking the truth and not living the lie, as Solzhenitsyn said. Solzhenitsyn, that guy that wrote that giant, thick book, The Gulag Archipelago, the guy that basically helped destroy the Soviet Union from his experience, the guy that was a supporter of the left-wing ideas and then later on realized these are bad ideas and they went after him, because I guarantee you, all you folks out there who are on the left, who think that you're going to bring in this utopia, you get the wall first. You don't even know it. You're useful idiots, as Yuri Bezmenov said. Folks, I don't have much more. Please go like, share, and subscribe if you made it this long. Like seriously, I'm getting some good traction in numbers as far as views, which will then allow me to monetize. I'm not necessarily going to go for full monetization on YouTube partnership program, but I do believe I'll be able to get super chats. They're going to be helpful for me and my family, allow me to get more equipment, allow me to do this more full time. Even though I'm not employed at the moment, I may need to go to work. I am going to be having a baby soon, so it's helpful. So it's very helpful. And if I get the proper views, then I might do these as live streams, because I do all these things live anyways in one take. I just post them afterwards. So consider that. If you all want to support me in any other way, I do have a subscribe star, which I have to shill because it's only $5 a month, guys. And it's just there as a backup if anyone wants to donate. We have a live show, or I have a live show with a co-host, the Ins Justify the Memes. That goes live on YouTube and over on the D Lives. On D Live, it is the Ins _Justify _memes, because that's how D Live works, and it's the only way I could get that name. Well, now you can't see it. So, right here, Ins _Justify _memes. And we will be on tomorrow with our friend Kizza GT, and we will be on, that is Saturday at 3 p.m., which is not a normal time for us. So if you're watching this today or tomorrow morning or whatever, you want to watch the live show, come over there. It's much looser, not a bunch of articles. We just talk about what we want to talk about. Kizza's going to talk about his remoralization program, which he's been on our show, I think, 3 times now. This is the opposite of the Yuri Bezmenov demoralization program. And that's about it, folks. With all that, this has been All Minus One, and I wish you all well.